we have one guest, a very important guest, Reed Smith, who has been keeping a watchful eye on what MID is doing. For those of you who live out of the area, that would be the Modesto Irrigation District, our water and electric company here in Modesto. He has some history of what's been going on over the last few months, up to, I think, about 2 years, and he will let you know what has transpired, some of the political games that are being played, as well as what we could be facing this next possible drought season if this sale goes through. So without any further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Athens.
You have a huge amount of information for us this evening, and I believe that we're going to get to this in just a moment. I think this is the pie chart that I've seen at a couple of the MID meetings.
Let me give you some background.
Yes. How about some history?
The directors at MID and the staff apparently have been working on selling water to San Francisco for a very long time. There's been some discussions that San Francisco has been lusting after Modesto Irrigation's Tuolumne River water going back possibly as early as to 1965. More recently, I'd never been to a MID.
1965, that's a long time.
That's a long time. In fact, since we've got some time to talk about it, there's a local farmer in the area that was a young college student at San Francisco City College, now UCSF, or not, it'll be University of San Francisco. He was taking a political communications class. And if you can think about 1965, what San Francisco was like, you know, his hair was probably down to here and probably changed the world goals to go with it. So he was taking a political communications class, and they had an invited guest, a consultant, come in to talk about how to manage a narrative, how to manage a storyline. So the invited guest came in and proceeded to lay out a complete propaganda, public opinion, press, all the coordination, how to get all the pieces in place for acquiring water for San Francisco at some point in the future. Then he proceeded to announce that the target was the Modesto Irrigation District and the Turlock Irrigation District. Now this person was from Modesto, and that obviously stuck in his mind, but the whole scenario that we're looking at right now was presented to him in 1965. More recently, there's been open conversations or open secret conversations about selling the water to San Francisco going back a couple of years. There was one iteration there was a potential sale that TID and MID had gone through, and MID went through an extensive list of characterizing all the reasons to not do it. So there's actually a document where MID is presenting all the no reasons to sell water to San Francisco. So that was only 2007, I believe.
Before this last election cycle,
Right.
obviously.
So I've been acquainted with John Dwordy for a number of years, as has my wife, through Ag Leadership Program and other community activities around. And John became a candidate to run for the Modesto Irrigation District about this time last year, last March or so. He filed and started his campaign, and we obviously were going to support him and did. So we were out walking districts and doing different things, and we got into late September last year, early October. Couldn't have been any longer than the end of the first week of October, and John, I'm visiting with him. He said, I just found out that there's a secret water sale intended to go on, and it's so secret that MID had met with Stanislaus County Farm Bureau staff and swore them to secrecy. You can't tell anybody, but we're going to do this deal.
But isn't the Modesto Irrigation District, the board of directors, aren't they supposed to conduct their business in public?
Completely open, and according to President Van Groningen of the board, in a transparent fashion. Absolutely not transparent up to that point. And candidate John Dwordy gave Farm Bureau like a couple of days to figure out how to get it public, or he would. And they did. And I heard about it from John at that point. The curious thing is, after Alan Short had met with a Farm Bureau staff person and swore him to secrecy, it was It was just a little sale, a little 2,200, little 2,000 acre foot sale. No big deal, drop in the bucket. After they met with him, he proceeded to go down to TID and inform the director that they met with and the general manager at TID that Stanislaus County Farm Bureau was on board with all this. On board. So they meet with one staff person, no board members, swear the staff person to secrecy, and then move on to TID and say that the whole of the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau board's on board with this. So that was the start of the troubling narrative, the troubling tale.
Now, okay. Do you think that they meant to say that?
Oh, absolutely. The deceit and conniving and corruption connected this is beyond the pale, and I'll get into some of that in a moment. Picking up the timeline, candidate John Dwordy was talking to Tom Van Groningen, just a board member at the time. He's now the president of the board. And in this phone conversation, John asks about what this water sale is, and Tom Van Groningen says, well, it's just a little 2,000 acre foot deal. It's no big deal. It's going to a developer in the South Bay. Oh, and we're going to get the water back. We're going to give them basically a letter of intent, a contract, but we don't have to fulfill it.
Okay, now let me just see if I'm clear on this. It was a 2,200 acre.
2,000,
okay.
yeah, something in that ballpark,
Okay.
yeah.
And it was supposed to be sold to the San Francisco City and County.
The term that they used early on was the city and county of San Francisco.
Okay.
And to be passed through to a developer.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's the part that I haven't heard yet, that there was actually a private developer involved. So he's going to purchase it from SFPUC.
Correct.
But they were going to kind of be like a broker, a water broker?
Yes. That's a fair characterization of the relationships in the deal. So John starts to query, what do you mean we're going to get the water back? And Van Groningen continues to say, and John Dwordy would swear to this under oath, so I'm not talking out of school. John says that Van Groningen proceeds to tell him that they need the water to complete their EIR, and as soon as the environmental impact report is done,
Who needs the water? The private
developer. The
Oh, okay.
private developer
Okay.
needs the water, and if they need to have a contract for the water to finish their EIR.
This sounds like a water mill. You know, you've heard of
Sure.
puppy mills.
Right.
Okay, that's what this sounds like. You know, San Francisco's just,
That the industry term is wheeling. They're wheeling water.
Okay. Interesting.
What they're actually doing is they're turning water, the substance, into a commodity that's just a piece of paper, like a stock share. They're monetizing water.
And they can withdraw on it at any time?
They can trade it to Los Angeles. They can do anything they want to do after it's left here. The physical water may never move anywhere, but the piece of paper and the right to it gets moved around. So,
and that's called wheeling.
Wheeling. So,
Wheeling and dealing, it sounds like.
well, that's probably the rest of the sentence. I hadn't thought of that. Good.
Do you need some water?
No, I'm
by the
good.
way?
I'm good.
Okay. We still have a little.
We don't really. We're only 50,000 acre feet short.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a
we'll
minute
come to
because it seems like what's going on now, they're promising water that we don't have. I've heard you say that
Well,
several times.
let me just
okay,
finish
all right,
the timeline here. So, but because there's some important components to this phone conversation between John Dwordy and Tom Van Groningen. And what Van Groningen says, it's okay, we'll sign the contract, but we don't have to fulfill the contract. We can pull it back. As soon as he's got his EIR done, we don't have to give him water. And I'm listening to this story, and I'm going, okay, John, so President Van Groningen of the MID board is telling you that they have conspired to sell water to a private developer through San Francisco in the South Bay. And once they get their environmental documents done, MID gets to withdraw from the deal. I said, that sounds like MID is a co-conspirator to defraud either a state or a federal agency. I mean, that's my take on it. But moving forward, so John says, I think you need to go public with this water sale. And MID didn't want to do that, but John forced it. And if John had not been a candidate and they weren't grooming him, prepping him, throwing their arm around him, say, John, old buddy, you got to get lined up with the deal here as a candidate, because they're doing the same thing with Larry Bird, because he was competing with John for that seat. I'm actually in Larry Bird's district, and I'm very happy with Larry Bird as a director. So the thing goes public. So it didn't take but probably 2 hours on the internet for some concerned citizens to look up on the web to see who the developer most likely was, and it's Cargill and the Cargill Family Trust, building 12,000 units on 1,400 acres on the former Leslie Salt Flats that Cargill owns, immediately adjacent to the Oracle campus. So if you've ever seen, Google Earth, look at the Oracle campus, giant high-rise, elegant campus, all landscaped. Right behind that is salt marsh, and that's what they want to develop.
And where is this located? Santa Clara?
It's Redwood City.
Okay.
Brisbane area. I believe it's actually Redwood City. San Mateo Bridge, and the San Francisco Airport's just north of that.
Sure.
So we look at, all right, Cargill's involved. How do you connect the dots? So, and I'll actually brings me to some of the documents in a moment.
Now,
but go ahead.
Do you have any history on Cargill as far as what their net worth is and what their pull is in the Bay Area? I mean, how big a boy is this guy?
Cargill's one of the most influential corporations and family corporations in the world.
In the world.
In the world. And if we go back to the Russian grain purchases, Russia had a devastating crop failure in 71, 72.
I remember that.
And Cargill worked out all the process. We're right in the middle of the Cold War. Actually, we're still in Vietnam at that point. And Cargill's doing an absolutely giant humanitarian grain sale to Russia, to the Soviets.
I remember that was a big thing across the news about people who wanted to sell the wheat and people who wanted to keep the wheat, and
right.
It was huge.
Because it was going to cost us, it raised our bread price by selling that wheat from here. But timeline, John Duarte gets the thing into the public, and now it's a campaign issue. Well, both John and Larry were adamantly opposed, campaigned openly, videotaped, recorded.
Came on TV.
Yeah, on TV. And so there was the time frame of it became public, and then MID decided, okay, now we have to take control of the narrative. We have to take control of the conversation. So they immediately set up 4 community meetings in, I believe, about the approximately the 18th to the 24th of October.
So would you say that at that point the proverbial cat was out of the bag?
It was out of the bag. And actually, in retrospect, what's strange now, Athens, is we didn't tape record, we didn't video record any of those 4 meetings because we thought we were dealing with rational, logical people that would make a sane decision. And we had no idea what was really going on. None of us. Not Director Bird, not John Duarte, none of the public. And I'd never been to an MID board meeting prior to early October. And as soon as I heard about this, I'm going, we are not selling our water. I'm a small farmer. My business is agriculture. I'm an ag and environmental researcher. My client base has always been ag-related businesses. And for us to lose surface water for any reason, I had no idea whether we had any water to sell, but selling water to San Francisco doesn't take much of a stretch to figure out it's a really bad idea. So there was a time frame of disinformation and try to MID control the narrative, the conversation. They did 4 community meetings, Fisherman's Club, Del Rio Country Club.
You're right, I remember those.
Yes. Then they did one at the MID
That's right.
boardroom, and then the last one was out at the Waterford Community Center. And it's interesting now because we've just found out today that Senator Dianne Feinstein's coming to Modesto on August the 29th to do an event. It's a fundraiser apparently for the Chamber of Commerce at the Doubletree. I've got my ticket. I wouldn't miss it.
Maybe we should show up with a video camera, huh?
Absolutely. What's going to be interesting is in the 4 meetings, Alan Short, the general manager of MID, they had about 10 bullet items in their PowerPoint. Now, we have all the PowerPoints, we have all the handouts. The hard copy we have, but there was no audio of what was actually said. But in those 4 meetings, Alan Short proceeded to tell the public that we have to do this deal with San Francisco because we need friends in the Bay Area. We need powerful political friends. And that he had worked out a deal with Senator Feinstein to, if we give her 30,000 acre-feet of water, she will interfere in the federal relicensing process for Don Pedro Dam to our benefit.
Do you ever get the feeling, because up until recently I don't think you've been too involved in politics.
No.
Do you ever get the feeling when you attend some of these meetings or go and talk to some of these officials that they kind of give you the little pat on the head like, oh, you don't really understand what the big picture, you don't really understand what's really going on, and if you did, then you'd be on board with us. Do you ever get that feeling?
They absolutely assume that position, but I've been a regulatory consultant in ag and environmental stuff for 35 years, and if you've dealt with regulators for 35 years, especially the United States Environmental Protection Agency, that little pat on the head doesn't go very far.
Before we go,
they get no deference from me.
Before we go any further, I'm going to ask Bill to go ahead and put the number up on the screen. So if somebody is out there who would like to call in.
That'd be terrific.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take any phone calls.
I'll absolutely
but
take questions.
I'm ready. I don't know what camera we're on. We're over here. Call me. So Bill will put that up there. We also have some footage of Hetch Hetchy, which will run in just a minute or two, so we can kind of see where the water starts and how fast it's flowing or not, and what happens to it. I mean, because it's up there in the hills, and then we have it, and then we don't have it. So,
well,
anyway,
right,
speaking of
Athens, right from the get-go, they informed us that this water.
Thanks.
They informed us that this water was going to come straight out of Hetch Hetchy, and the reason is that we're just absolutely blessed to have this opportunity to sell our water to San Francisco, because the infrastructure is already in place.
But I heard that we really don't have water to sell.
We don't.
Okay. Are you ready for this?
Actually,
not yet. Okay.
Just a moment.
Okay. Getting ahead of myself.
Part of the overview that I'd like to paint the picture to is.
Go ahead and run the Hetch Hetchy.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Part of the narrative is how the strategy has changed from October, November, December. Here we're looking at Hetch Hetchy. This is at a peak runoff, high season outflow. It looks like there's some.
Well, it looks like we have plenty of water.
It looks like we have plenty of water.
So what happens? How come we?
So here you can see the inflows coming off the cliffs next to Hetch Hetchy, and there it's going. Those are aluminum or steel strips on the top there, and the pressure of the water, it's up so high it's actually going through the cracks between the metal and the concrete right there, and it's just seeping out slowly. So Hetch Hetchy is absolutely jam-packed full. So this transfer of water that's being proposed by the Modesto Irrigation District and the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. It is commission. Thank you. Originally it was City of San Francisco, and then it became City and County of San Francisco, and now it's the SFPUC. But I actually have a letter from Alan Short. They're going back to the City and County of San Francisco again. So there you can see the releases. They're having to release water down into the natural stream
Which is
drainage.
important. It's very important for the
Environmental,
environment.
right.
Yes.
But that stream channel is actually how MID gets their share of the Tuolumne River. That runs down that gorge down into the Don Pedro. And but out of Hetch Hetchy, there is a take of 3, possibly now 4 giant tubes. I think that they're each 5 feet in diameter. They are reinforced concrete, I believe. The water is so pure that it will actually dissolve the pipe. So they have to put chemicals in to buffer the pH and to keep this pure water. The water is so pure, it functions almost like an acid. So it's so pure it'll dissolve concrete. I've been told, I've never been up to Hetch Hetchy, but I've been told they've got a drinking fountain where the public can drink straight out of the lake. The water's so
I'd like
pure.
to go up there and try that.
So we're told by MID that the beauty of this deal, this wonderful opportunity, is we don't have to build any infrastructure to get the water to San Francisco. We're just going to sell it to them, and it's going to go right through the Hetch Hetchy pipes that they take their share of the Tuolumne River anyway.
Now, are they still talking about the 2,200 acre feet, or are we lumping it in with the big sale too?
Well, I didn't bring the letter from Alan Short to Diane Feinstein dated November the 28th, where it is quite clear that the 2,240 acre feet is co-joined with the 25,000 acre feet. But the contract that's quite troubling, actually let me digress to the scenario. So they do public meetings, and then the propaganda deal started all the way through December. They put out an MID fact sheet, and they actually released it like the Friday night of Christmas weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
They say timing's everything.
We had to get this out to you. So
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So here we are 9 months later, and I'm looking at this process. They fully expected to have John Doherty or Larry Bird and Nick Blum Jr. come into the fold and go to a board meeting and agree to move this water sale as a consent item.
Now you say they. How many?
That would be Paul Warda, a director, Tom Van Groningen, a director, Glenn Wild, a director, General Manager Alan Short, and General Counsel Tim O'Loughlin. The 5 of them that sit on the dais. Now, 2 of those are employees, but they sit up there like they were running MID because, for all intents and purposes, they are. The last board meeting, they ran the whole deal. Van Groningen hardly said a word. But they expected to sneak this thing through, get 2 new board members, throw their arms around, tell them what a good deal it was going to be, and put this through on January the 10th, the first meeting of the new board members being sworn in, and run this thing through as a consent item. Well, there was enough stink in October, November, December. They put it on the agenda as a water sale. Larry Bird immediately made a motion to the board to stop the water sale, to kill it. Larry sat there while 4 other directors sat on their hands and did not even give him a second. He made a motion to kill an out-of-district. At this point, it was a 60-year deal. That was what was discussed in October, a 60-year deal. And Nick Blum, that campaigned in absolute, unequivocal opposition to the water sale, didn't even second Larry Bird's motion. They immediately turned around and made a motion to negotiate a contract and directed General Manager Short and General Counsel O'Loughlin to start negotiating. The reason that this is very twisted and bizarre is the contract that they finally disclosed to the public on April the 27th says that it was going to be entered into on January the 24th.
Retroactive?
No.
Or
it was
January.
going to be the contract that they were going to push that. The contract that they posted on the 27th of April was already written by the SFPUC. It was on their desk when they made a motion to start negotiating. It was already written. It was there They had the document to run through as a consent item, but they backed out because of public opposition.
Can you imagine, just for a minute, okay, what San Francisco is doing over there? They're probably pulling their hair out because it's like, oh, those Modestans, they're stopping this sale.
There, Athens, I don't have any idea what's going on in San Francisco other than this is a pattern of behavior that has gone on for a very long time. The SFPUC attempted to sell the electrical generation capacity of Hetch Hetchy to PG&E at some point in the 30s. The impacted constituents did some form of probably a class action suit. San Francisco was so emboldened and so arrogant that they debated the thing, appealed. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in 41 or 42, in the middle of the war, and the Supreme Court justice wrote up just an absolutely scathing decision against San Francisco because the Raker Act that came in around 1911 specified that they couldn't commercialize any component of the resource. The resource is supposed to be a public asset to the public good. So let me.
Are you ready for your chart yet?
Yeah, we can do that. Athens? What came out in the presentation? Being an ag researcher and
there we go.
Being an ag researcher, I'd actually done water mass balance studies to account for all the water in a whole riparian drainage district, and so I was quite familiar with running and accounting for water, and right from the beginning of them talking about the water, every single meeting we went to, the numbers changed.
I noticed that.
So actually, if you can focus on this side over here.
On this side here?
No, this one right over here
over
where my
here?
hand
Okay.
is. There we go. What we see is we've got, I've been adamant because I started to gather up the documents and just did a simple Excel spreadsheet on where they said the water was coming from. The thing that's important about this pie chart is, keep in mind, we've seen the outflow from Hetch Hetchy, and the water that's for this transfer and the larger transfer are all coming straight out of Hetch Hetchy to San Francisco. It does not hit the middle Tuolumne. It does not hit Don Pedro Dam. It does not go through the Don Pedro turbines to generate electricity, and that the salmon and steelhead trout in the lower Tuolumne, right here in Modesto, don't see a drop of that water. So what's interesting with this pie chart, Athens, is MID has been telling us since October that this piece right here, that blue piece, if you can read right there, it says surface water outflows. And what that means, Athens, outflow is spillage, it's waste. It's the water that hits the end of Modesto Irrigation District and just goes into the river, goes somewhere. Well, it took us some time to figure out, you can set that back down again. It takes some time to figure out, well, what is 40,000, what's 40,000 acre feet of water? That's a lot of water. And so I'm running the mass balance. I won't go into the whole detail with this show this evening, but the long and the short of the accounting for all of the water is that we're overcommitted, overcontracted by 50,000 acre feet. What's bizarre about both of these pie charts is that there is zero environmental stewardship. MID, well, I guess I will just briefly mention about the environmental stewardship component of this.
And the environmental means the salmon and the trout
it's
frogs
things,
and
it's water,
owls, everything.
It's water that agencies require the irrigation district to do something with the water to benefit the environmental component. The water is used for ag, the water is used for drinking, City of Modesto, but they've got federal FERC relicensing, the part that Dianne Feinstein was supposed to interfere with. The minimum for that is...
I have a question.
Sure.
If she was going to, as you say, interfere to help the process. Is the opposite true? So if we
That was inferred.
okay,
Yeah,
so if we become like a stumbling block to the sale, was it inferred that she
Absolutely.
would make it difficult to get the relicensing?
Alan Short stated this quid pro quo at least twice in the 4 meetings, so that's 8 times. He stated, I have arranged a quid pro quo. MID is going to give San Francisco and Senator Feinstein 30,000 acre-feet of water, and she's going to interfere with a federal regulatory process to our benefit.
Did he say interfere?
Yes, absolutely. Interfere. Intervene. Manipulate. Change the outcome. So it was so egregious and so blatant. I went to the board on January the 10th and I asked, Paul Warda had been the president at the time that these meetings were going on. I said, Paul, did you direct or authorize your general manager to solicit a quid pro quo for water for regulatory interference? And he wouldn't answer, and I restated it. He tried to climb under the table.
Did you get the gavel?
No, Van Groningen was kind of stunned that I didn't kiss the ring finger, so he was quiet, and finally Paul said no. And my response to that, I said, well, good. That would make that in the fact that you didn't do that suggests that this is not currently a criminal enterprise, because that quid pro quo is a felony. So Alan Short is out on his own because Paul Warda said it was not authorized by the board. So that was the first shenanigans. But we've got FERC relicensing coming out at 20,000 acre feet.
Now, for the people who haven't heard that before, FERC stands for
It's Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They assume they have some federal right to manage our water. We built the dam, we got the permits, but they say that they get to, every 50 years, they get to redesign where our water goes based on whatever the whim of the moment is. So FERC gets 20,000 acre feet. Department of Water Resources has not been identified. They're going to force us to release either 20%, 40%, or 60% of the natural stream flow that comes into the top of Don Pedro. Same day, the same amount's got to go out the bottom for fish. Brand new. We don't know what the numbers are going to be.
So we don't know what the numbers are going to be that the federal...
No, not on, well, it's the Department of
But we know
DWR.
what we would have to commit to with the contract.
Well, yeah, we don't know what DWR is going to require.
Okay.
We have no idea. But
Surprise!
but we do have an obligation of 15,000 for the Bay Delta.
Okay.
We have another 5,000 for the San Joaquin River restoration, and just on June the 26th, it was announced that they have to give up another 3,600 acre feet for steelhead migration in the lower Tuolumne right here in Modesto. So in the pie chart, there is no accounting. There's zero reference to any environmental stewardship, and that's 35. It's about 45,000 acre feet of water
Per year?
Okay. That's not in their accounting. But so I want to focus on this outflow deal, because what's going on with the narrative now, Athens, is since January we've had people come into the room and get up and assert their support for the sale. The bizarre thing is that 9 out of 10 of them are local Modesto attorneys. So they get up and they say, I represent a group of small farmers. Well, they will claim attorney-client privilege in their assertion that they represent small farmers. Well, we've had a gal from Ripon get up from a law firm and claim to represent small family farms. But we find out that one of the other attorneys in her firm represents the lower Tuolumne farmers that have been trying to manipulate the outflows of Don Pedro. And those names are Bill Lyons Jr., Mapes Ranch, Bob Ott, and 2, 3, 4, 5 other farmers. So they come in, they get on the cameras in the MID boardroom, and they claim to represent small family farms. Yeah, let's see, 5,000 acres, 2,000 acres. No, we had a gentleman come in and claim that he was poverty-stricken, poor sharecropper. He couldn't afford to have his water rates raised. Now, the sale has absolutely nothing to do with the cost of ag water. The board sets the price for the water. The sale would typically and shouldn't have any effect on what a farmer would pay for the water.
Do you think that the people coming before the public during their, what used to be, I guess, 5 minutes, now they get 3 or something?
Right,
like
it's been
that?
cut to 3.
Yeah. Do you think that the people who are throwing their name and the people that they represent around falsely?
Yes, and I'll speak specifically to that in just a moment. What we have found is that we're having, besides the attorneys, well, actually, I'll talk about one specific attorney. I have a piece of letterhead here that was handed out last Tuesday, a week ago tomorrow, at the Modesto Downtown Rotary. There was a debate, and this was the handout from the debate. It's on the letterhead. It says the Villalobos Legal Group. Ruben Villalobos, Esquire, got up and said that I sit on the Modesto School Board. I'm president of the school board. And I sit on the Latino Working Group Coalition, some other deal, that is 3 or 4 or 5 people that may or may not meet. They've never taken a vote to support or oppose this water deal, but he claims to represent them. So he mentions them this last Tuesday. But then he proceeds to say, but I'm here today just representing myself. Yet his handout says Villalobos Group. This is the handout's from a corporate entity, not Ruben as an individual. So in public, at the microphone during the debate, he lies about who he's representing. Mr. Villalobos is being paid tens of thousands of dollars.
By who?
We will find out. That's the numbers that.
More to come next week?
Pardon?
Is there more to come next week?
There could be. We're working on. I'm actually doing a public records request to ferret out. What's happened with the money deal is MID, to promote this sale, and to my knowledge, the way that they get approved is they bring in the warrants under a consent item, and it says Martino and Associates, a graphics art firm here in Modesto. Well, it leaked out. Something got stated about a local political consultant, Mike Lynch, is hired through Martino Associates to go out and promote this deal. Well, for the first 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, he was doing regulatory something or other. Well, they finally had to fess up when we started pressing them in the budgetary warrants part of the meeting about exactly what he's doing.